What is up, guys? My name is Lex. This is our last video here in Austin, Texas, and today we're playing a live stream. If you have been following along with my videos in the past, you know I've lost a ton on live streams, running bad, losing huge pots, making the wrong decisions and wrong plays that quite frankly are pretty embarrassing. I'm not sure if I'm just cursed on live streams, but it just seems like when the cameras are on, I either can't make the right decision, I can't hold in the big pots, or I just lose all my money. But today, we're going to try to change that. We're here at the lodge, playing 2, 5, 10, 20, no limit. I'm super excited about this game. Let's get started. The first hand we play is hand number 9, Pocket Kings. There's a $20 straddle. I raise it up here to $75. Caitlin makes the call with pocket 7s in the small blind, and the under the gun straddler makes the call as well. 3 ways to a dreadful ace-high board. However, I think we're going to be good here a lot of the time. Neither of my opponents 3-bet pre-flop, so they shouldn't have pocket jacks. I don't expect them to have too many strong aces. So when it checks to me, I put out a small bet. I throw out 2 green chips, 2 red chips, $60, trying to get called by a Jack X hand, gut shot straight draws, a 6X hand, maybe some smaller pocket pairs, small blind calls with pocket 7s, and then under the gun calls with 8, 9 high. So I guess we got what we wanted here. Our opponents are in there with worse hands. The turn is the 8 of hearts, and considering I got 2 calls on the flop, this card could improve my opponents to some 2 pairs, maybe a set of 8s. And there's an overcard to my pair. When it checks to me, I decide to check this turn card back. Still 3 ways to the final card, which is the 9 of hearts. A pretty bad run out. Queen 10 gets there for a straight. This card also brings in some 2 pairs and a backdoor flush. Caitlin checks. Under the gun decides to fire out here for over $200. And I just don't think he's bluffing here very often. He can have an ace, 2 pairs, sets, straights. And I'm really only beating a hand like King 10. And I block that hand. I do have the King of Spades, which is a bad card to have, so I decided to let my Pocket Kings go. And it turns out our opponent went runner, runner, 2 pair. Pocket Kings getting cracked right off the bat. We decided to play a game here on the stream. I'm going to call this the VPIP game. Basically how it works is that at the end of the stream, after 4 or 5 hours, whichever player has the lowest VPIP, which means whatever player plays the least amount of hands, will pay out $50 to the entire table. We're playing 9-handed, so basically the tightest player after all 4 or 5 hours will pay everybody $50, which means it's a $400 punishment. This game really incentivizes people to call more and raise more pre-flop, to play more hands so that they can get their VPIP up so they don't have to pay that $400 at the end of the stream. Back to the action, it folds to Andrew Nemi on the button, one of my favorite poker vloggers and also the co-owner here at the lodge. He has King 10 offsuit, he raises to $65. Everybody folds back over to me in the $20 straddle with Queen 9 offsuit, a pretty bad hand facing a raise, but we're playing the VPIP game. I gotta get in there, I can't be last, so I make the call. The flop is pretty favorable for one person, and it's not me. It comes out King, King, Deuce, 2 diamonds. I check over to Andrew, who puts out a $40 bet. Now we do have nothing here with Queen High, but a lot of the time we're going to be ahead on this board. Andrew's going to be opening up so many hands on the button when it folds to him. He's going to have 7 high, 8 high, 9 high, Jack high, and all those hands we're beating. I don't want to just give up versus this $40 bet. The action could potentially go check, check all the way to the river and I could win, or if the turn goes check, check, maybe I could try to fire out a bluff on the river, depending on the run out. So I decide to make the call here. We're going heads up to the turn, which is one of the worst cards in the deck. It's another king. Now Andrew has the huge range advantage. He can have all the big full houses, aces, queens, jacks. So I check over to him. He puts out a bet. And we're just forced to fold here, and Andrew takes this one down with quads. This hand is pretty insignificant to you guys, but for me, it's actually a pretty big deal. It's the first hand I've ever played against Andrew Nemi, and I've been a fan of his for a very long time. About 4 years ago when I was trying to grind up a bankroll and trying to become a winning player at 1-2, I was still a personal trainer here in Miami. In between my clients, I would fire up YouTube and watch all of his poker vlogs. So now, 4 years later, it's a pretty surreal moment. I'm playing at the same table in a huge game at a poker club that he now owns. It's pretty wild how both of our lives have changed here in the last 4 years. Next hand, under the gun +1 opens up the action here. Notorious TJ makes the call. I'm in the hijack with pocket nines, and fellow poker vlogger here in Austin, Jay Win, makes the call on the button. 4 ways to 3, 4, 4, 2 spades. Under the gun +1 initial raiser checks. TJ checks, and given the fact that under the gun +1 did not c-bet and Jay Win didn't 3-bet pre-flop, I think pocket nines here are going to be the best hand a ton of the time. So I'm going to fire out a bet. I can get called by a ton of hands here. Flush draws, straight draws, weaker pocket pairs, maybe some ace high hands as well, and also try to clear out some equity like overcards that my opponents may have. Jaywin makes the call on the button with his king high flush draw, and under the gun +1 makes the call as well. 3 ways to the turn, which is the 8 of spades. Flush gets there, and now pocket eights are beating us. When it checks to me, I check, and Jaywin checks back. The river saves us with a 4, now giving us a full house. The player who raised initially pre-flop and under the gun +1 and then check called my bet on the flop now decides to come out with a bet, which doesn't make too much sense. He could have some big overpairs that he was slow playing on the flop, like aces with the ace of spades, maybe kings with the king of spades. So when he throws out a bet here of $500, we're kind of in a tough spot with pocket nines, but I feel like we only have one option.
Snap call here from Lex, and now Jaywin facing a bet and a snap call. Hates it, but he's going to quickly lay down his flush.
I make the call, and my opponent shows 7 high, which is no good. Pocket nines are going to take this one down, and we win a pretty decent pot here with a full house. After losing here with pocket kings, but then here winning with pocket nines, we're up about $500 within the first 30 hands of the session. Lily Coletto is at our table, and she opens up the action here to $60. She does not want to lose this VPIP game. She's playing basically 50% of hands. Big blind makes the call, and under the gun makes the call. When I'm here with king queen offsuit in the $20 straddle, I think it's a great spot to put in a squeeze. Big blind didn't raise, and under the gun didn't 3-bet, so they shouldn't have too strong of hands. Given the fact that Lily's playing 50% of hands, she can have a super wide range here, so I bump it up. Let's play for more. I make it $325. Everybody folds, and we take down this pot. Moving on here, hand number 43. Andrew puts on the $40 straddle under the gun +1. I have king queen of diamonds on the button, a beautiful suited Broadway hand. I raise to $125. Folds back over to Andrew, who makes the call here with 6-8 offsuit. The flop comes ace, ace, deuce, 1 diamond. He checks. I bet very small here, and he makes the fold. The very next hand, hand number 44, $40 straddles on again. I'm in the cutoff with king 10 offsuit. I make it $125, and Jaywin decides to get a little out of line here on the button and put in a 3-bet with pocket kings. Action folds back over to me with a super dominated offsuit Broadway hand. I make a pretty easy fold. I decide to play 3 hands in a row. Hand number 45, I get way out of line here, raising 7-5 offsuit in the hijack to $75. Not really sure what I was doing here. We get immediately punished when Andrew wakes up with ace king of clubs, and he 3-bets us, and then under the gun +1 puts in a 4-bet, and we have a pretty easy fold here with 7 high. About an hour and a half into the stream, and we are voluntarily putting money in the pot. 26% of the time, we're nowhere near the bottom, so I will take it. We're right up here. The next hand, ace 10 of hearts. Under the gun, I raise to $75. Lily comes in with a call on the button, and Juliet, queen of felt, makes the call as well. After about an hour and a half of watching Lily play, she has been playing very aggressive. Any single time she senses weakness, it seems she's putting out bluffs and bets here. So when the flop comes out king 10-5, we flop second pair. I decide to check over to Lily, thinking she'll bet, but she checks this one back. Turn 4 of diamonds, Juliet checks. I'm going to check again, and now Lily can't help herself. She's got to put out a bluff. She makes it $150. Queen of felt makes the fold, and with my second pair, I make the call. Final card is a 3. I just expect to just check call any bet she makes, but she decides to give up and check back. I show the ace 10, and it's good. Pretty smooth sailing session so far. Not many tough spots, but that is about to change. Caitlin opens up the action from early position with a raise to $60. I'm in the $10 strata with king queen offsuit. It's a close spot whether we want to 3-bet here or call. And versus Caitlin's early position raise, I like to call. Jaywin makes the call as well, and we see an ace high board. I check, Jaywin checks, and Caitlin puts out a $60 bet, a pretty small bet on this board. She could have a ton of hands she's doing this with, maybe some smaller pocket pairs of the board. She could have king high hands, queen high hands, suited connectors as well. So with king high, I don't want to give up just yet. I do think a lot of the time this is just a fold with a player behind me, but I get sticky here with king high, and I make the call. Heads up to the turn, which is the king of diamonds. Now giving us second pair with a good kicker. I check over to Caitlin, who continues to fire now for $150. When Caitlin c-bets this flop, she's going to have a ton of hands, but when she continues here on the turn, she's basically saying she has hands like ace-10, ace-jack, ace-queen, ace-king. I think she would be checking all of her smaller pocket pairs like 8s, 9s, 10s, and jacks. She could have some flush draws here like king-x of hearts. She could maybe have hands like queen-10 or queen-jack that she's double-barreling. But given the fact that we call it on the flop and hit a pair on the turn, I can't fold just yet. Going to the river, which is the 7 of hearts, a pretty interesting card. The front door flush gets there, somewhat of a scare card. I check over to Caitlin. I'm expecting her to check back all of her one pair ace-x hands and for us to lose, but she continues to fire here. Pretty big, $375, and now I am officially in the blender. We called here with king high. We made second pair on the turn, and now we're facing a pretty big bet on the river, but it doesn't make too much sense. Caitlin bet the flop and the turn, representing hands like ace-x and flush draws as well, but if she did have a hand like king-x of hearts, I actually think she would check back the turn sometimes, given the fact that she has showdown value and didn't really want to get check raised. She could have some suited connectors here with hearts, but I don't expect her to be opening all those hands from early position. I expect her to be checking back all of her single ace-x hands here on the river, so when she bets this sizing, she's saying, I have a flush, and I'm not scared if you have a flush either. Her bluffing hands could be king-x with the king of hearts. She could have queen-jack or queen-10 with a heart in it. She could just have a total airball bluff like the hand that she has. So after a while, I decide to put in the call. We see the good news with her 10 high, and our king is going to take this one down. This hand is an example of why Texas poker is so tough. People here just have no fear. Obviously, Caitlin just went off here with 10 high. Got to give her respect. She went for it. Luckily, we had a hand that we could call down with. In the past, I've made some wrong decisions, so it's nice to finally make the right call on a live stream. Moving on here, a couple hands later, it folds to me on the button with ace-10, a good hand we want to be raising here. Only a $10 straddle, so I go 4x, $40. Under the gun, it makes to call. Heads up to an ace-jack-deuce board. I can sometimes c-bet here and sometimes check, and heads up, I decide to check this one back. Turn queen of clubs. Pretty bad card. My opponent checks, and I'm just trying to get to showdown here, so I check back. River's a 9. This is actually a pretty bad run out for my hand. I'm losing to a ton of 2 pairs and flushes and straights, so when Caitlin leads out for $125 here into an $87 pot, I just feel like she's not bluffing that often. I don't think she ever takes this overbet sizing with a single pair ace that we're beating, so given this price, I'm only in the pot for $40. I just let my top pair go.
Lays it down. Wow. It's correct, but still quite shocking that he lays that one down.
Turns out our ace was no good. Caitlin ended up having a 6-high flush. Moving on to the next hand, I'm on the hijack with ace-10 offsuit. Again, I raise it up here to $75. Cristiano here raises me again to $275. We're super deep stack. Ace-10 is not really the best hand you want to be calling 3-bets with. It has reverse implied odds. My opponent can have an ace-queen or an ace-king hand. If the board comes out ace-high, I could be in a pretty tough spot, but we're on a Texas live stream. Let's play some pots. I end up making the call. Heads up to an ace-high board. We make top pair, 10 kicker. Could be a good spot, could be a bad spot. We will see. When my opponent 3-bets me pre-flop, I put him on some bigger pocket pairs, some strong ace-x hands, and some suited and offsuit Broadway cards. So when he continues for $200, I assume he's going to do this with basically every hand he gets here with. I don't think a raise is good because he's going to fold out all of his bluffs, and I don't think a fold is good either. That leaves one option, which is to call. With almost $1,000 in the middle, we see the 4 of spades on the turn. I'm actually expecting my opponent to check here a lot with all of his hands like pocket 10s, jacks, and queens. Afraid that I may have an ace, but a check is not what we get. He continues to bet for a rather large sizing, about 2/3 size of the pot, $600. When he continues for this sizing on this board on the turn, we can basically discount him from having under pairs of the board. I just don't think he's ever betting this sizing. So with this bet, he's basically saying he has ace queen, ace king, or a bluff.
Top pair for Lex. We've seen him fold a pair of aces once already, and he might be doing it again. Making all these facial expressions, all signs point to fold for Lex, but he's got the best hand. Top pair is good.
The commentator mentioned that it looks like I was about to fold, and I'll be honest with you guys, once I saw this ace-high board in a 3-bet pot, I already made up my mind that I'm just never going to be folding to my opponent. But let's say I did have a hand like 7x, maybe pocket 9s, pocket jacks, queen 10 of spades for a flush draw, I would take my time facing a $600 bet. So I want to take my time as well when I have top pair. If I act very quickly with strong hands and easy decisions, and then I take my time with weak hands and tough decisions, my opponents could potentially pick up on this. If I also snap call a $600 bet on an ace-high board in a 3-bet pot, it's going to look super strong and may discourage my opponent for going for a big bluff here on the river. Like I said, I already made up my mind on the flop that I'm going to call on the turn and then call most bets here on the river. So I end up taking my time and eventually putting the chips in the middle. A big pot brewing here, a huge $2,200 in the middle. The 9 of diamonds on the river, honestly a pretty great run out. The spade flush draw misses if he was barreling off with king queen or queen jack of spades. So I'm ready to call a bet here, lose sometimes and win sometimes, but my opponent checks over to me.
Surrenders, he's waving the white flag. Lex is checking behind, don't see him going for value. Checks and he wins the pot. Nice hand, Lex. There you go.
The 3 biggest hands I've won so far on this stream has been people just bluffing it off into me, so they must have seen or heard that I like to make big folds on stream, but not this time. Not going to be folding against these crazy Texas players. We're up over $2,000 now in the session. Dustin, who's been pretty quiet all day, races it up here in early position. I have 5-3 of diamonds, trying to get that VPIP percentage up, so I make a pretty speculative call with that suited gapper here. We flop a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw, so I make a call on the flop. When the board pairs on the turn and my opponent continues to bet, we have a pretty easy fold. We get an update on the VPIPs. Lily at the top, 43%. I'm sitting up here with 26%. Queen of folds at the bottom with 19%. All we got to do is continue to play some hands and we'll get $50 at the end of the night. Another hand, another raise. $75 here with king queen offsuit. Lily makes the call and Nimi makes the call for $75 as well. 3 ways to a queen high board, giving us top pair. Checks over to me. I bet $100 and Lily just can't help herself. She puts in that check raise bluff to $280. Andrew gets out of the way versus a player who's playing almost 50% of hands and super action. No way I'm letting go of top pair just yet. I make the call. We get a great turn card, giving us trips. It's another queen. Lily now slows down and checks. It is possible she could be trapping here with pocket 5s or pocket 3s for a full house, but I don't want to check back and give her a free card with her flush draws and her straight draws. I want to bet, but I don't think I have to bet too big. I threw out $250, and on a paired board with 4 high, Lily makes a good fold. Just cruising along in this session, running good, making good calls, not really embarrassing myself just yet. We're up $2,600 after about 3 hours of play, and it gets even better when we raise pocket 6s pre-flop, get a couple callers, and we end up flopping a set. I put out a c-bet and only TJ makes the call. The turn is a 7, seems like a pretty safe card for me. So with his short stack, I decided to put them all in, and unfortunately, we ran right into the nuts straight. We end up running this board out once, and he ends up holding here with the straight, and we lose about $800 worth of our profit. For a guy that looks like he could be my older brother, I guess I'm okay with doubling him up. So far, we're about middle of the pack for the VPIP, holding our own here, not getting closer to the bottom, which is what we want to see. Next up, Caitlin raises here. A bunch of people call. I have ace 10, which has been a pretty good hand for me so far, so I make the call as well. We completely miss on a queen high board. Juliet checks. I check. Initial raiser Caitlin decides to check her top pair. Lily checks and Andrew checks behind. All the way to the turn, which is the 6 of diamonds. Juliet checks again, and given the fact that Caitlin didn't c-bet the flop, Lily didn't bet, and Andrew didn't bet when checked to, I feel like I could possibly steal this pot with a bet. We can assume that if Caitlin, Andrew, or Lily had a strong hand on the flop, they would want to put some money in, and if Juliet had a strong hand on the turn after everyone checked the flop, she would come out here with a bet. So I feel like I can try to steal this pot here, get people to fold some smaller pocket pairs. I bet out $130. Caitlin makes the call, and then Andrew makes the call with his pair and flush draw, so I'm officially done with this hand. Not going to put any more money in the middle until we see the ace of spades on the river, giving us top pair. An interesting spot whether we want to bet here or check, and I feel like it's kind of hard to get called by a worse hand if we bet this river, so I decided to just go into check call mode against two opponents, and Caitlin decides to put some money in this pot. She throws out $375. Andrew gets away from his Jack 8. Action back over on me. I'm actually not too happy with this spot. I don't think Caitlin's bluffing that often into two players on this river card, so I'm not really sure what I want to do.
He's folded an ace on a river before. Can't fold for 375. On such a draw-heavy board that's missed, the ace, your prototypical bluff card, Lexo's never folding. He makes the call.
We eventually make the call and our ace is good. Juliet next to me chirps in here that I should have called faster. I'm not sure if this is her way of flirting, but unfortunately for her, I'm just not into older women. Profiting $2,800 so far. That is what I'm talking about. Finally some run good on a Texas live stream. We then decide with about 30 minutes left on stream to play the stand-up game, which is a staple here in Austin. Basically, everybody stands up and you cannot sit down until you win a hand. If you're the last person standing, you owe everybody at the table $50. So all we got to do is win a hand and try to save $400. Doyle Brunson hasn't come out with a stand-up game book yet, so my strategy is just to try to win a hand as quick as possible so I can sit down and rest my legs. The first hand we get dealt in while everybody is standing up, I have King 9 of diamonds. I raise it up to $150, hoping I can just take this money down pre-flop and be the first to sit down, but nope, we end up losing this hand. About 25 minutes into the stand-up game, some players have won a hand and are allowed to sit, and some players, including me, haven't won a hand yet, so we're trying to get there. I raised to $200 on the button here with ace-10 offsuit. I get a couple callers, and unfortunately, totally miss this board and have to fold. Getting somewhat desperate now to win a hand. I definitely don't want to be the last person standing here. I raise ace-10 suited, get a ton of callers. We completely missed the flop for the third time. King 8-8. Action checks all the way around. Turn is a 10, now giving us second pair. Lily, the bluffing machine, comes out with a big bet of $370 some. Not going to fold my second pair just yet, so I make the call. The river's an 8, now giving us a full house. And Lily bets big again, $600 for Lily.
It's going to win again.
Just trying to get paid.
600.
This is actually a really gross spot. If we make the call and we're correct, we win a pretty big pot and we get to sit down. But is Lily ever bluffing here? She really doesn't have any incentive to try to bluff in this pot because she's already seated and I'm standing. She can probably assume that I'm going to call down lighter because I'm trying to win a pot so that I can sit down. It looks like she has a king or maybe quad 8s. I feel like I'm probably not good here, but I'm not really sure what to do. Hero folding full houses on the river is probably not the best play, especially up against a player who is playing wild and giving a ton of action, but I just don't think our 10 is any good here. Turns out Lily had the old King Deuce offsuit for the top full house, and we're still standing. We're trying to win a pot here, getting in the mix, calling a raise with ace 9. 45 minutes into standing up, I call a raise with ace deuce and lose. 1 hour into the game, I call a raise with ace 9 and lose. And now 1 hour and 5 minutes into standing up, my feet are tired, my knees hurt, my quads are cramping, I need a water break. We end up calling a raise with King 10 and we finally get a good flop. King, Jack, King, we flop trips. The only players left standing now are me and Caitlin. It's been a war. We've been on our feet for over an hour and the loser has to pay the table out $400. The flop checks all the way through and the turn is the ace of spades. Pretty bad card. Queen 10 makes a straight, a flush gets there, and there's some full houses that Lily can have. I decide to check, given the fact that I'm multi-way, and Lily puts out a bet of $150. She's just been bluffing so often here, so I could check raise, or I could call. On this board, multi-way with trips, I feel like we're going to be way ahead or way behind. I decide to just call here with trips, allowing Lily to continue to bluff on the river or overvalue bet a worse hand. Other players fold, so we end up going heads up here, looking for a clean run out, which we do not get. It's the deuce of spades. Now any spade will make a flush. I check over to Lily, and she puts out a $500 bet.
punished.
Ace.
No.
Spade. Sorry.
That was almost a slow roll.
The unintentional slow roll there.
Is the unintentional slow roll
A slow roll?
still a slow roll?
She
This is the
didn't know.
question.
I don't think she knew.
I didn't know how to spade.
I don't know very much about you, but have you been playing poker for a while? That was a very
Well, that was a pretty bad beat. We were over 96% favorite to win on the flop and got a pretty awful run out. We've lost almost all of our profit on the day, and the worst part is we're still standing. After this, we get an update on the VPIP game, and I'm about middle of the pack, so at least we're not going to lose that. 1 hour and 16 minutes into this stand-up game. I've been standing now for 1 hour and 16 minutes. It's heads up, me and Caitlin. The loser has to pay out the table $400. I have Queen Jack offsuit. I make the raise. Caitlin makes the call, and Lily makes the call. We go 3 ways to the flop. The board is 8 for 3, 2 hearts. We completely miss again, of course, but when it checks to me, I'm just going to put out a c-bet here, trying to represent overpairs like 10s, 9s, jacks, and queens. Unfortunately, the one person we want to fold is Caitlin. She comes along with a call. We see the ace of spades on the turn. Interesting card. I think a lot of the time I should continue here to bluff, but she can have hands like ace 5, ace 3, ace 4, ace deuce. She can have the ace high flush draw. All those hands are just never folding, so I decided to check back the turn. The river doesn't help us at all either. It's another heart. She checks over to me, and now we have a decision to make. The loser of this hand not only loses the hand, but also has to pay the entire table $50, so there is a lot riding on this. I feel like there's 3 options / outcomes here. 1, I could turn my hand into a bluff and have to bet big, probably $500 or $600. Caitlin folds, we win the pot, and we don't lose the stand-up game. The second outcome could be I bet big like $500 or $600. Caitlin is sick of it and doesn't feel like folding her pair, and she makes the call. We lose the $500 that we bluffed, and we have to pay out another $400 to the table. The third option / outcome that I have here is just waving the white flag, knowing that if I check back here, I'm probably going to lose, but I could save $500 on a bluff against a player who is just probably not going to be folding any pair to me. I would lose $400 to the table, but I would get a $50 rebate for not losing the VPIP game. Not really sure what to do here. I just felt like she was just never going to be folding a pair, so any money I put in the middle was going to be lighting money on fire, so I give up, wave the white flag. She ends up winning with a 3, and we lose the stand-up game. We lose most of our profit, and we have to watch the entire table cheer against us. Over the 6-hour live stream, this is actually the only hand that I regret the way I played it. In a normal game, I think it's fine to just check give up there with queen high, but on a live stream game, heads up against the only other player that's standing, I feel like it's just a mandatory bluff attempt. Even if it doesn't work, I feel like you just gotta go for it. Either way, we end up losing a lot of our profit there at the end, but still profiting $444 in the session, while playing 27% of hands. Alright guys, that is it for this one. Our last day here in Austin, and honestly, I would say this could have been one of the best tables I played at in a very long time. It was really fun. Everybody was super talkative, having fun, making jokes. There was great action. We were running really good at the start. I was making hands, calling down light. People were trying to bluff into me, and I was winning almost every single pot I played. I think at one point I was up over $2,000. I got to play with Andrew Nemi, which was really exciting because I've been a fan of him for 4 years now, and if it wasn't for Andrew and Brad, I'm not sure if I actually would have made it in poker, because when I was struggling at 1-2 and 2-5, I would watch their videos all the time just trying to learn, because they were winning 2-5 players at the time. So I would study, you know, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, what they 3-bet, what hands they played, how they navigated, and it's kind of crazy how it came like full circle. Like 4 years ago, Brad and Andrew were grinding 2-5, making videos, and I was a broke 1-2 player watching the videos, and now 4 years later, they own a card club, and you know, they're doing great with YouTube and life, and now 4 years later, I went from being a broke 1-2 player to being able to play with Andrew, playing, you know, 5, 10, 20, $7,000 deep. So it's pretty crazy how things will change in 4 years, but unfortunately, we just could not get rid of this Texas live stream curse. I have lost basically every single time I'm on a Texas live stream. I lost almost every single time I played in Dallas. I lost a huge pot in rounders when I played there in San Antonio. Lost big pots in Austin, like $3,000. So I just can never win on live streams. And today I thought it was gonna be my day. I thought I was gonna win like $2,000 or $3,000, but we played this stupid stand-up game and I just ran so bad. I couldn't make a hand. I couldn't win a hand. I was trying to get in there, trying to play some pots, and I just couldn't get anything going. I finally flopped trips, and I guess I played the hand bad. I mean, I wanted to check and allow Lily to bluff because she was bluffing all over the place. So, you know, I was 96% favorite to win that hand, which is super tilting because if I win the hand, I get to sit down. You know, hands go differently, but I ended up losing literally $2,000 during that stand-up game. So it's a great game. It provides a lot of action, but unfortunately, it didn't go too well for me. Ended up still winning about $120 today. So that is it for this little quick Austin, Texas trip here at the lodge. It was a lot of fun seeing new people, meeting new people, playing on stream, playing with Brad, playing with Andrew. It was really cool. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. Comment down below if you have any questions or anything like that, and subscribe. New videos like this coming out every single week. All right, until next time, I'll see you.